County. I have Bob, Commissioner from Lehigh County, join me right now, and we're going to start the discussion on home rule. Bob, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Chris.
All
My
right.
pleasure.
All right, let me grab a drink here.
Okay, I'll do the same.
All right. Well, Bob, thank you for making the trip up from the valley to have a conversation with me. And I did want to focus it on home rule because we have 3 counties that are contiguous to Carbon County that are home rule county. You know, Carbon County, we are administered and guided by the county code. And I would like to think a lot of folks who follow me probably realize that we are at April of this year was the 50th anniversary of home rule in Pennsylvania. In April of 1972, it was signed into law, giving counties the opportunity really to establish a charter, some would refer to it as a constitution, that brings the ability of the citizen, gives them greater influence, say, in how government operates through a charter. But before we jump into the heavy topic of home rule, I wonder if you could give a little bit about the background of your interest, how you got into the current position you have.
Surely.
Yeah.
Before I answer that, Chris,
Yep.
I do want to say something to your viewers and the
Yep.
people in Carbon County.
Yeah.
They are really fortunate to have you here doing the things that you're doing and trying to inform and sometimes educate
Right.
the community with regard to what's going on and also civics type things like the decision whether to be home rule or not.
Right.
So very much great kudos to you for that.
All right. Thank
And
you, Bob.
very much
Very
we
kind.
should have more county commissioners like you doing.
All right. Well,
So-
thank you so much, Bob.
Yeah, so my background, I'm a educated engineer. I went to Lehigh University, spent most of my career working in manufacturing.
Okay.
And I, in the process of doing that, about halfway through my career, I got involved in actually starting up manufacturing companies. So I consider myself to be a manufacturing entrepreneur. I started 2 companies in Lehigh Valley, successful, and grew them. And then once I did that and mentored the folks, my former employees, to take over the company, I retired and I moved on to doing other things,
Okay.
took on other challenges.
Right, right. And obviously elected office is one of the challenges that you took on. What inspired you, to kind of make the leap from the manufacturing world into elected office?
Well, I've always been involved and engaged in community activities. Volunteer firefighter for a number of years. Volunteered also with the American Red Cross as a first responder for incidents of that sort, as well as spending 15 years on the zoning hearing board in my township. So been involved on the peripheries, but of course work took the greatest priority. When I saw, after I retired, the timing happened to be when things started to deteriorate, I thought, in all levels of government, the polarization that started to take place and so forth. And I saw the direction it was going. I said to myself, I've got 12 grandchildren. I said, I want to make a better world for them.
Right.
So I decided I'm going to get engaged. And when I ran for office, my chief idea was, and what I ran on was restoring common sense to government.
Wow.
That was my main issue because I felt that for the most part, common sense had gone out the window. It had gone on to great polarization, taking hardline positions and not doing anything for the community to actually get things done.
Great. Yeah. So a great catalyst to bring you in, right? You see challenges that are taking place within the community, within government, the lack of application of common sense that brought you in. Well, let me thank you for your experience as a first responder, because that ties into an item I actually didn't discuss. On September 11th, appropriately so, we just commissioned our Emergency Operation Training Center here in Carbon County.
Excellent.
Now it has about a 4-story tower, so for internal and external work there. Plus, we have a police training building that'll allow activities to take place internally with police forces there. Now, it's been a project of about 8 years in coming, but that has just finished. And that popped into my mind when you mentioned your own experience as a first responder. You know, we have challenges, obviously, with volunteers. Time is the most valuable asset we have. Hate to have to send, you know, our volunteers out of county all the time for training and exercises. It's nice to have the facilities in-house.
It's a very, very serious problem within the state, and actually, as far as having volunteer first responders, it's absolutely first priority on my agenda as well.
Okay, great, because it's critically important, and we all benefit so much from the volunteers, at least in Carbon County. We're totally volunteer that we have here. So let's, you know, refocus. How would you describe home rule to a layman, to an individual who says, what is this? There's only, you know, basically out of 67 counties, we just have over a handful that are home rule counties. So it seems like a pretty peculiar, unique thing. So what is home rule?
Yeah, it kind of is. You're right. There are very few of us out there. We're rare beasts.
Yep.
And most of them are the larger counties,
Sure.
of course, that have moved in that direction for the most part. Essentially, the Home Rule Charter has allowed us to move from a strict requirement that the state puts out in the county code that you mentioned earlier. The state has determined what the ground rules are for those counties that are involved in that and are required to follow the county code. And so everything's coming from the state. Home Rule allows the county to say, no, we want to have more local control over our government and local government and how it works. So that's the essential basic idea of it. And then within that, it allows the county to develop their own sets of rules, not totally, but their own sets of rules, different ways of operating. Obviously, you have to meet all the state requirements in general, but by and large, there's a lot more flexibility for home rule in terms of how you set up your functional operations.
Okay, so you still have to comply with existing laws, the Constitution of Pennsylvania, but outside of that, you can craft what is referred to as a charter.
Yes.
In a way that best meets the needs of the particular county versus really almost being directed to a cookie cutter approach that everyone has to utilize.
Exactly. It gives more local control over the operations of your local government.
Have you had any previous experience in a county, or has your experience all been in Pennsylvania in a home rule county?
Most of my adult life has been in Lehigh County.
Okay, all right, good enough.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about, Carbon County government, if we want to call it one separate entity, is really organized through like 3 branches of the military service. We have Army, Navy, Air Force, but we call them the Board of Commissioners and the 21 departments that fall under them. Then we have 9 row offices. So the row officers, that's the second branch. And the third branch is the judiciary. Obviously, row officers has certain, what we call hire, fire, manage authority, 1620, section 1620 rights. The court has its own rules, and then the departments that fall under the commissioners. They're kind of like 3 silos. Authorities and responsibilities differentiate in our organization. Can you talk a little bit about how Lehigh County is organized from, starting really with the Board of Commissioners? Now, I would always make the analogy, I see it more like a publicly traded company with the CEO, COO, and board of directors. But could you describe how Lehigh County is organized?
Sure. There are actually a few more elements to it.
Okay.
Obviously, let's take the basics. we'll start out and compare it to the United States government.
Okay,
which
perfect.
Most people are very
Perfect.
familiar with.
Yep.
So you have an executive branch,
Yep.
you have a legislative branch,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a judicial branch.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, as you mentioned, there are row officers
Right.
who have some degree of independence.
Right.
So they kind of sit out there and do their own thing. And depending on the different counties, the row officers can be appointed or elected.
Right.
So getting back to the major categories, the county executive runs the administrative aspect of
Okay.
it, just like the president does in the United States.
Okay.
And the board of commissioners actually form the legislative branch.
Okay.
We create all the ordinances and so on and so forth, and also have an important role with regard to the budget, approving the budget, the financial side of the operations of the county. And of course, the court system functions pretty much independently on its own, although there are some interactions with regard to the jail and incarceration and criminal justice and that sort of thing. To get back to your point about the CEO vision,
Yeah.
it could be that way.
Right.
It depends on your home rule charter,
Okay.
how you decide to create it. For instance, in Lehigh County, since the executive is elected,
Oh.
then the Board of Commissioners is an independent entity from the executive. So the executive doesn't report to
Right.
us. The
Yeah.
executive reports to the voters,
Voters.
just as we report to the voters. Now, in Luzerne County,
Right.
however,
Yep.
their executive is an appointed executive by the Board of Commissioners. So essentially, in a sense, they're not much different than what your structure is in a way that you could have a chief administrator of some
Right.
sort, but the three commissioners would appoint that administrator
Administrator.
executive, and then in that case, that would be an example of a corporate structure with a
Right.
CEO
Great.
and a board of directors.
Right.
So
No.
those would be the kind of differences. So if Carbon County were to go that direction, the voters would have to make a choice.
Sure.
Do they want the CEO type of and corporate structure
Right.
versus a U.S. government
Right.
type of structure?
Okay, good. So talk about how many commissioners are there in Lehigh County?
Lehigh County has 9 commissioners, and the way it's organized is there are 5 commissioners, each of which are elected through the voters in only their district. There
Okay.
are 5 districts, geographical districts in
Right,
the county. And those 5 commissioners are only elected by the voters in their specific district. They have
Okay.
to reside in that district
Sure.
as well. And then there are 4 at-large commissioners for the entire county.
Okay.
I'm an at-large commissioner.
Okay.
So they all are not elected at the same time.
Right, okay, yeah.
It's a 2-year split. Next year, 2023, will be the election for our at-large.
Okay.
And then 2 years after that will be
All the districts. Oh, okay. All right, I didn't know that.
So that kind of balances things out
Okay.
so that everybody's not coming on at the same time.
Yeah.
And the administration wise and from standpoint of the commissioners, you'll have new people coming
Right.
in. Some people will get reelected, but it's not a total possibility of a
Sure.
total turnover in any one year.
Right. Yeah, and that's a very unique part of each home rule county. Each of them is very distinct in the number of commissioners they have, and the number that are at large or district and stuff. A very unique
Oh,
characteristic.
yeah. I grew up in Luzerne County. And
Right.
they have 11 commissioners, which is a lot.
Right, it is, right. So do you consider, so in Carbon County, we are quote unquote full-time. As a minimum,
Yes.
more or less from 8:30 to 4:30, we're in the office, per se. What about in Lehigh? Are you in the office from 8:30 to 4:30, or what's your, I don't want to say your required investment, but would you consider yourself full-time, part-time? How do you describe it?
There are literally no requirements.
Right.
Once you're elected,
Right.
you're elected, And if you don't show up to do anything,
Right. Yeah.
you're there for 4 years.
Yeah, right.
And that's it.
And then the voters decide your future.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, and again, you can make it what you wish.
Right.
Some people could spend more time in it. Most of the commissioners in Lehigh County have full-time jobs.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Two of us are fortunate enough to be at the retirement level.
okay. Right.
And which which is me. So we could put more time in should we choose, and I do that when I can. I try to put extra time in because again I'm retired. I could show up for different events and be engaged.
Oh, right.
When some of the other commissioners don't have that flexibility,
Because of
and that is one of the issues. I would say the downside of a home rule charter with part-time commissioners,
Right.
because you don't get the interface
Right.
with the administration and see the day-to-day operations in great detail. In fact, when I was first elected, the election was in 2019. January 2020, I was sworn in.
Right.
March of 2020, everything was shut down.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm in for 3 months,
Right.
and it's crickets.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I have to
Okay.
deal with, okay, I have to do everything from home.
Yep.
I can't, it was so frustrating because I could not go out and meet all the different
Oh.
directors in
Yeah.
the various departments and
Wow.
get engaged with them
Mm-hmm.
and debrief. Everything
Right.
had to be done by phone. It was very, very awkward and frustrating. The first year of my term was absolutely terrible
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for me because everything had to be done by Zoom and by
Yeah.
phone.
So it makes the learning curve so much. It's already steep. Now it's steep for a much longer time.
Yeah, exactly. From my perspective, in my first term, I really will have been functional for 2 years.
Right. Yeah. No.
so-
Yeah, that is definite. Do you receive medical, dental, retirement?
No, we don't receive any benefits, although, at least in Lehigh County, we could sign up for pension.
Okay.
I didn't do that
Right.
because I'm retired. I
Right.
did okay in my
Yeah.
business, and I figured
Uh-huh.
taxpayers didn't have to support me.
Right. Right.
I'm already
Yeah.
retired.
Do you have physical space in the administration building?
Yes, we do.
Uh-huh.
We all have our own offices.
Okay.
There's a central location. They're modest offices, but we have a privacy where we can have meetings and so on and
Okay.
so forth. And our clerk and our deputy clerk reside there. They're full time, so it's in one complex in one area of the government building.
Am I correct that the county executive in Lehigh is term limited?
He is
The two terms.
Two terms. Yes,
The two
that's
terms.
correct.
And the current one is on his second term or first?
That's right. He's on
He's
the
on
second
second.
term. Yeah, he just got reelected, so he has another 3 years, and that's it.
All right. So the county executive is term limited. The commissioners are not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in Northampton County, I
Right.
believe the executive's not term limited.
Let's check Northampton County. He is not.
Yeah.
Yep. He is not.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems like three of the seven are. 3 of the 7 are term limited. 4 are not. is what it's-
And once again, by the way, another kudos. When you sent me that spreadsheet, that represents a ton of work on your part to put all that together.
Well, yes, Bob, if you're going to talk, if you're going to advocate, you have to know the subject.
Do
You
your
have to
homework.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You have to do your homework and research. And it was so enjoyable to read all the charters. Probably 7 times to go through all the charters and then to take it and to put into something that other people wouldn't have to spend the number of hours to do.
Yeah.
What I found a little bit frustrating though, because of it's been quite a few years. It was really for most counties pre-digitization before they when they were doing their government study commissions. I could only get easily 2 of the government study commission reports. Now, and they were great value.
Right,
where I wish it would have been easy to get all 7 of them, simply by a simple Google search, Government Study Commission report, versus having to kind of call people and even having to do some right to knows,
Chris, that was back in the 70s.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Everything was paper.
No, right, Yeah, I just want them all scanned, all that historical information scanned for easy access, for us our researchers and things of that nature. Talk a little bit about the relationship then between a county executive and a commissioner. Well, and I do understand this is the only experience that you have. You don't have the county code experience, but it sounds like it'd be unique.
How many hours do you have?
12 minutes. No, go ahead.
No, seriously, that again is what you make of it. And depending on the characters of the commissioners and the county executive, it could be very, very stressful and controversial. Or it can be very collaborative and get things done. So, if it's the more stress and the more infighting gets done, it doesn't support what the voters really need in terms of getting things done for their best interest. The more collaboration that you can have, the more things get done.
Right.
Fortunately, in Lehigh County, we've had that now for several years. And both sides of the aisle work together. We collaborate, we talk. In fact, we talked about, I've had some talks with my colleagues with regard to some of the ideas on changing our home rule charter.
Good.
With regard to rural officers. So, and so we're having a discussion on that.
Because I would refer to them sometimes as rogue officers instead of row officers. Now, this is the first time I publicly used that term,
you're in trouble
but I have called them evil once or twice in publicly, but haven't really, coined the phrase for them rogue officers. It's interesting. Dick Marcinko, who was really one of the what we call the plank holders of SEAL Team 6, is right from up the road here in Lansford, and his first book was Rogue Warrior. So people, most people won't tie it together, but it pops into me when I hear everything about these 1620 rights, which makes them challenges to synchronize, coordinate, and have what I would refer to, again, military terminology, I speak what I know, unity of effort, because of that. And that's one of the reasons I'm a big advocate of home rule, because you could take row officers and modify the limitations that they have, so you can ensure you have uniform administration policies for simple things. All the policy is men will wear ties in Carbon County government. Well, obviously, the row officers really don't have to comply, nor do the courts, right? So we'll keep the courts out of there because they'll always be that independent entity.
Sure.
But wouldn't it be nice if we could have uniformity across all our administrative procedures? Evaluations, mandatory, and
HR.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really a big struggle that we have. So the interaction, what you described, same with 3 county commissioners, right? And we find it's not so much politics, it's really people or personality.
Right.
Politics, we don't sit there and say, I'm a conservative or a Republican, therefore I believe this, and therefore I'm not going to vote that way. Now, obviously, that might influence some of your votes and decisions, but at the end of the day, it's our beliefs, our values, our ideals that we hold. How often does the Board of Commissioners in Lehigh formally meet?
Well,
your public meetings.
Yeah, public meetings are 2 a month. In general, but during the budget season, which it is right now, we have extra meetings, public meetings again, to go through some of the details on the budget, because that's one of the more critical aspects of governing. It affects everybody's tax rate and so on and so forth, as well as what kind of services we can provide. So it's a very important part of it. So we'll add in 2 to 3 extra meetings, depending on the stress in the fiscal stress that's involved at that particular year or whatever. As you've seen through COVID, we've all been stressed terribly. So, you maybe put extra effort in because things have happened, and you have to modify your fiscal position based on some of those stresses, and then you spend a little bit extra time working on it, and you have more meetings.
Right. And I did notice you all in your charter have a balanced budget requirement.
Absolutely.
You know, which is great. And again,
Absolutely.
we in the county code don't have that requirement. You know,
Yeah.
again, we can or we can't. And,
Well,
and-
again, I guess you would have that option,
right.
whether or not you want to in a home rule
Right,
situation.
exactly. Yeah, and I'm glad to see, and I can't recall the number. I think all of them have put that in their, almost all of them have put that into their
Yeah,
budget.
I would recommend.
Oh
that.
yeah, I think that's almost a no-brainer.
Sure.
You know,
Common
yeah,
sense.
right there you go. Right, it's kind of like your platform. You know, so talk a little bit about and it intrigues me because I was going to ask you the question about potential changes to your charter. I know I think some modifications may have taken place in 2008 or so was the last time. And you mentioned grow officers.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking in regards to potential changes or modifications?
Yeah, well, in 2008, some of what they really did, the big thing they did was to combine some of the clerk functions.
Yeah, love that. Yep.
which really made sense.
Oh my
goodness,
gosh.
it it cut down on staffing and organization, much more efficient running. So
I'm going to interject. So listen to this: Clerk of Courts, Prothonotary Register of Wills. Right, one chief.
yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
what we
Yeah.
still kept the people who were doing the jobs.
Sure.
But we combined them into one organization
Right. Yep.
that was directed by the clerk of judicial records. But going forward, I mean, I've looked at this as the chief. To some degree, we have the controller, sheriff, and the clerk of judicial records, as well as who am I missing? The sheriff.
DA.
Well, district attorney, we have no control over that. He's state.
Oh, right.
State guided. So
Yeah,
again,
so
it's
fine.
another independent.
Right.
We have absolutely no control
Right.
over the budgetary,
Right.
except for budgetary
Right.
aspect of that. But if you think about it, you know, and this is my concern,
Yeah.
and some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, we talked about this. Geez, you know, the coroner is elected.
Right.
If I had the political impetus and I had the power
Right.
in my county, I could be elected coroner. God forbid.
Right, with no background experience,
Right.
right.
So in my opinion, some of us think, you know, the coroner, the clerk of records, because it's basically a clerical position, administratively clerical. There's no political aspect to that at all.
Right.
All you're doing is handling records.
Right.
Could certainly be appointed. Now,
Yeah.
the sheriff, that's, you know, you could make that argument one way or the other. Maybe if it were an appointed position, there would have to be requirements on having some law enforcement experience.
Right. Which
You
we
could at least
had,
put
so-
that in before they could even get on the ballot.
Right.
The controller absolutely has to be elected because conflict of interest.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That role.
You want to
office
keep
is-
that
is
independence.
vital. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
those are some ideas.
Right.
But changing that is very significant.
Sure.
I talked to our clerk
Yeah.
and just recently, and he gave me some history that has been around a long time.
Yeah.
He basically said there have been suggestions by commissions that they had for changing the
Yeah.
charter that suggested that these be done,
Yeah.
but they were voted down.
Down. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Now,
In all cases.
all right. One thing that intrigues me about home rule charters are citizens' rights. That is the right of citizens in a couple different ways. One, to actually get an agenda item on an agenda. One might be to have a ballot measure put onto a ballot. You know, in Carbon County, you know, you can't get 5% of the folks in the last, you know, governor's election sign a petition, and all of a sudden you're going to have a ballot measure, right? Likewise, you can't have, 10% of the electorate, sign a petition and say, we want a particular agenda item. If, a county commissioner doesn't propose an agenda item, it doesn't get on there. And I do know that Lehigh is no different in that, but what you do have, you allow ordinances to be proposed to council and by popular vote. Have you experienced any of that so far, where there's any type of movement by the citizenry to get ordinances or proposals pushed, or to propose initiatives?
Yeah, certainly I haven't.
Yeah.
And I really, honestly, I didn't ask the clerk about that when I was chatting with him, but it would be a heavy lift because it's 15%
Right.
of the voters,
Yep.
which would be around 35,000 petition signatures
From the last
in
general
Lehigh
election.
County.
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
That's a lot of
It
signatures.
has to be one heck of a significant
Yeah.
issue to generate that kind of energy in the electorate to go ahead and do something like this.
Well, I love still the fact to see that it is an option.
Yes, and
You know?
actually, now that you mention it, I think the impetus that somehow there was a referendum that the voters signed the petitions on to actually go to a home rule charter.
Well, yeah, so there's obviously, not obviously, I'll state this for the public, I know folks who follow me, listen to me, hear it all the time, right? So there's two options to get the Government Study Commission, which is, of course, the first step. One, the Board of Commissioners can go ahead and just do a vote to have a ballot measure put in there. Or the other way is to go ahead and do a petition. In Carbon County, based upon, it would be 5% of the last governor race, you'd have to have 5%. It would take just over 1,000 signatures.
That's not a heavy lift.
It is not.
No.
And neither is but it is a heavy lift to convince one other commissioner, unfortunately.
I see.
And that's the easy way. But come January, I will make a motion for that to put them on the spot, because I believe the voters should have the right to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so why not put it on the
And
ballot?
that's one thing that troubles me about, and I saw this on, and I would push back on the wording in your website, commissioners,
Yeah.
where it was said that, that third commissioner is giving the minority a say and so on and so forth.
Right.
It really isn't.
It doesn't.
With a
No.
three-commissioner
Yeah.
configuration, all
Yeah.
it takes is two
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
talking to each
Each
other,
other, yeah.
and the third person
That's
becomes
right.
irrelevant.
Yeah,
So-
and we say it's really, most people tell you, it really takes one, it's a one commissioner. It's one commissioner talking to another.
Exactly.
So again, it doesn't give the minority. And that's another thing, again, with only three, because I'm a big believer in, again, I would look to a 7 or a 9 member board, 5 of them being at large, 4 of them, 5 district, 4 at large, potentially corresponding to the 5 school districts in Carbon County, and then 4 at large. But what I think in Carbon County, and I think this is everywhere in the United States, we have this uncapped potential, human potential capacity that's untapped. And that's the independents, the non-affiliated. It's so difficult for them, if not near impossible, to be. And, I talked to so many of them who I think, man, that would be a great elected official. But again, they really don't have a chance in a clear two-party system like we have.
Exactly.
And again, while kind of Pollyannish, my hope is if you could create more opportunity by more commissioners, I will call them part-time commissioners,
Yeah.
there is a higher probability naturally that an independent, a non-affiliated has an opportunity to be elected, to kind of
Yes.
break that seal, that glass
Yes,
ceiling.
yes. But there is a heavy challenge here from that standpoint. You've got a 65,000 person county.
Yep.
We're 5 times that big.
Right, yeah.
So to draw 9 people is a lot easier in our neighborhood because there are more people to work from. Again, because it's It's a part-time position.
Right.
And how
that's
many
just-
people have that flexibility to be?
No, and that is the
That's a
drawback
major
from a
challenge.
large one. You know, you're not going to get, and I will say, you know, you have to have the pool. You know, again, because you want, you know, be it 5, 7, 9, whatever that number is, you want people who are capable.
Yeah.
And again, you know, and we don't want 5 old retired white guys.
Right.
And, you know, and again, a part-time job, who can do that? You know, some old retired white guys from Jim Thorpe, right?
Yeah.
You know, because again, you know,
Yeah,
you know,
retired people,
Yeah.
or folks who have an independent business of some sort.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they have the flexibility
yeah,
to,
yeah.
to show
But
up.
it does really start narrowing down the pool of potential when you do large
Absolutely.
numbers in a small
Absolutely.
county. So we talked about changes. Grass is always greener on the other side, you know? So if I could, I'd love to be able to flip over to a home rule county for about 4 years, see what it's like, you know? Because I know, you know, there's some great things about the county code. I can't think of any off the top of my head, to be honest, but I know they're out there. No one's has been able to educate me on those already, but I know there's some challenges. You know, in home rule counties, we all have similar challenges. But again, I love the fact that you could potentially organize much better to address specific issues.
Yeah.
We only have a couple minutes left, and we're a little bit over time. Bob, I'm going to switch to, hey, what are the issues in Lehigh County? Like, you know, are there top 3 issues that you guys are facing, or, you know, what takes up the majority of your time as commissioners?
Well, a lot of the in our meetings, a lot of the activity on the agenda really is legislators.
Right, sure.
We're basically passing, voting on grants. We're voting on appointments, those sorts of things. The big initiatives of you know, attacking homelessness or attacking the opioid epidemics, those sorts of things take a little bit more time. The epidemic, the opioid, that's critical right now,
Right.
as well as homeless in our area, simply because of the large community, with Allentown being the 3rd largest city in the state.
Right.
So homelessness is a very serious issue there. But as well, the city of Allentown, the administration is working on that, as well as the county.
Well, right.
So those are very important issues. We do have problems with managed growth.
Right. I was
in
going to
the
ask you
county.
about land development.
Land development
Yeah.
has been a big problem. I'm also on the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission,
Okay.
serving on that for the last 4 years. In every meeting, we talk about that. And some of the problems there stem from a municipal planning code that was basically state regulation that our legislature has control over, that needs to be changed.
Right.
It's ancient. It doesn't provide enough control to limit the growth, or not to limit the growth, but control the
Control
growth.
it, yeah.
So the growth is in the right places.
Yeah.
Warehouses
Oh my
in our
gosh, yeah,
area,
yeah.
and the air quality is absolutely horrendous in our area. So we have some serious issues there that we're dealing with. So that's another big area that we've got problems with. So you know, traffic.
Yeah.
As a result of the warehouses and the truck traffic going through. And again, as a volunteer first responder, our station is right next to I-78.
All right.
Big problems with motor vehicle issues and crashes and tractor trailers and so forth on the highways. So those are some of the big areas.
Yeah, I would have suspected land development. You know, I mentioned as I was talking earlier, we have a ballot measure, $10 million ballot measure, at least to get a sense of the community. You know, would they want the Board of Commissioners consider a $10 million bond issue to enhance our ag land preservation and open space preservation program.
We
Because
do put a lot of money into
Yeah.
land
Yeah.
preservation in Lehigh County.
Yeah, I've seen
Huge
that.
amount.
Yeah. I know it's pretty incredible what Lancaster County, they're number one for ag land preservation. They're the number one county in the United States according
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
their board of commissioners.
So I'll give you, here's an area where you really should concentrate on with the land development.
Uh-huh.
And that is multi-municipal plans.
Oh, right.
I've been lobbying on that for years
Yeah.
because I was on the zoning board. Our planning commission is doing a great job. We've got most of the municipalities, and through the planning commission, it's all been a lot of their work to get the municipalities to gather together into groups so that their zoning
Right.
is organized in the fashion that, and I'll give you an example. My township, Weisenberg, is right adjacent to 78. Our supervisors many years ago were very smart. They put the warehouse area right next to 78, and it's locked in there, and it can't go anywhere else, so that the rest of the community, where there's a lot of farmland and countryside, stays that way.
Right.
And some of the municipalities in the area who didn't do that, that are very close to my house,
Right.
there are major controversies because they never took the time to take that multi-municipal plan and use it to adjust their zoning so that, because Weisenberg has warehouses, they don't have to have warehouses.
Right. Yeah,
But
exactly.
they didn't take warehouses out of their zoning.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, they're in trouble
But, yeah.
because once the developers get started on that, they've got tons of money.
Sure.
Far more money than the township does
Yeah.
to fight these things. If the township can do and go in there and join together with other townships and organize their zoning so that it's only in certain areas that certain uses are,
Right.
it's going to end up, you're going to have a much better product
Right.
for your county. So
Right.
highly recommend that you do that.
No, and that's critically important. I see it right on top of Flagstaff here. So again, you'll go the path of least resistance, and that's what a developer will do. So again, if you squeeze the balloon, right, it pops out somewhere else. And,
You're lucky you don't have, you're fortunate you don't have a lot of interstates around. You
Right.
do have the
Yeah.
turnpike.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's an area
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
you could have warehouses
Yeah.
starting to show up and pop up
Yeah,
out here.
we have a little bit because we have 476. We'll run into I-80 right up in
Oh, that's
Gitter
true.
Township.
That's right, yeah.
So we do have one there, and again, it is problematic already, and obviously concerned with truck traffic. We see what's occurring in Lehigh Valley. You can see the impact it has up at Humboldt, up in Hazelton area and stuff like that. With them, I'm heading down what we used to refer to as Paint Mill Road, Indian Trail Road and stuff like that, heading to the airport and starting to see them pop up, in what was pristine land just a year or two ago and stuff like that. 3 or 4, probably, 100, 200,000 plus square feet at least.
At least.
I mean, it's amazing. I still can't believe we haven't reached the point of saturation.
Yeah, the
Well,
statistics
mhm.
in the Lehigh Valley are just outstanding,
Yeah.
incredible, the millions and millions of square feet
Yeah.
of warehouse space.
But it does create a part of a tax base, right?
That it does.
That
That it does.
does.
Yeah.
And-
But
and-
it doesn't create jobs necessarily.
no, that's right. Right.
We'd much rather have, again,
Yeah.
as a manufacturer, we'd
Yeah.
much rather have manufacturing in those
Yeah.
spaces instead of
Yeah.
big, high, open space
Space.
with air
Yeah.
and no jobs.
Yeah, and I can see more and more they're going to black warehouses. There's a term, black, where again, there will be very
It's
few
automated.
individuals, it's so automated and stuff.
Yep.
You don't need many individuals at all. Well, Bob, I want to thank you for taking about 40 minutes of valuable
Sorry.
gift. No, like I said, I could really talk home rule for hours and hours and go all the way back to talking about government study commissions, petitions, and the
Yeah.
process, because it is an area of great passion and interest to me, and it's because of something you hit on. It's about good governance. Want to see good governance, want to see effective, efficient, responsive, and held responsible government. And I do believe there's a better way. I just have to convince, about about 30, 40,000 electors, that, members of the electorate. That
You've got
there
your
is a
work
better-
cut out for
Yeah,
you.
it is. And again, we'll see what I finally decide to do with it, but I would like to give at least the citizens an opportunity for a government study commission. Let them make the recommendation if, to create a charter or not and put it to a vote. I kind of, I studied the Revolutionary War a lot, and, you had Jefferson and Adams, right? The Federalists against Don, right?
Yep.
Right. So you think about, do you want, and it's interesting, a lot of Republicans are around here, and it may be misinformation, they're anti-home rule. And I said, well, really, we as Republicans believe in state rights over federal government rights.
Local
this
control.
Home rule is, instead of state control, it's more local.
Exactly.
You control your own destiny in many ways. So it's
It's a
unique.
conservative concept.
It really
Without a
is.
doubt.
Yet,
Without a doubt.
yet the ill-informed don't realize that. And again, you have to educate them to help them better understand the principles and beliefs sometimes of even their own party, which I find frustrating. Well, again, Bob, thank you so much for joining me on
My pleasure,
Carbon
Chris.
Matters.
My pleasure.
Yep.
Keep
Jen,
up the good work.
Yep, thank you so much. Jen, I will get to you on your topic. I'm not going to talk it now. I'd love to have a phone call, 570-325-3611. Jen, you know how to get in contact with me, or 570-503-6780. There's a bunch of comments on the other feeds. I saw them go by. I will address them later tonight or tomorrow when I have a few minutes to go ahead and go through those. I want to thank you for joining me. Late October again, we're going to be talking the ballot measure that's up for vote in November in regards to the $10 million bond issue that citizens of Carbon County can weigh in. Also at the end of October, we're going to have NAC VSO and a county veteran service officer here, and we're going to talk Operation Greenlight for veterans and supporting our veterans. Again, this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. Thank you for your time, your attention. Take care. Good night.